Thanks for tuning in and welcome to Roof Connections podcast. My name is David Huval and I'll be your host. Today is a very special episode. I am joined today by a co-host that you all know. His name is Wade Crosswhite. He is the Vice President of Sales at Roof Connect. And he's joined me to co-host for a special guest we have today. We are joined by a former Army Ranger, leadership mentor, entrepreneur, and author, retired Sergeant Major J.B. Spisso. Am I saying that right?
You are J.B. Spisso. Perfect. Thank you. David, Wade, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Like we said a second ago, we're excited to have you here. We recently both read your book, Warrior Leadership, Steps to Success for Leadership on the Ground. We thought that was great. We're going to get into that a little bit later. We're going to talk to you a little bit, get into your background a little bit. I know Wade's got a couple of questions for you too, so we'll get right into this. So, JB, you have a long storied career in the military, starting back in 1984, right?
Correct.
Including you did 10 years with the 75th Ranger Regiment, which is very hooah, by the way. You retired after 26 years with the highest non-commissioned officer rank of Sergeant Major. I haven't served in the Army myself. I know that many of the factors, both internal and external, play a role in choosing why you choose to serve. Can you tell us a little bit about why you joined and what was it about the military that made you stay in and go through all the way and make it a career?
Yeah, wonderful question there, David. And thank you for your service as a veteran as well. I initially joined the military, for the college fund. I wanted to do some service. I was a pretty good student in high school, pretty good athlete. And I just felt like I needed a bridge before I dove into that college experience. I say it often that, I aspired to be a high school history teacher, coach hockey and baseball. That was kind of my thought of what I was going to do. And I thought the bridge of the military would be a good start for me. Mm-hmm. And, but I don't know how it was when you joined, but I didn't know a whole lot about the military. Yes, my father was a World War II veteran, and, he would introduce me to some of his friends at the VFW and that sort of thing, but I didn't know a whole lot about it. And so, there weren't the programs that there are today, to help prepare people for going in. A friend of mine, Jason Sweet, he's a former Air Force PJ. He runs this program called SOCOM Athlete. So if you're basically thinking about enlisting in special operations in any of the branches, like he'll run you through this program and get you mentally and physically ready. It's genius. I didn't know anything about that. So with the help of the recruiter, I, end up, infantry, airborne school and have a Ranger contract. And, I tell the story, the first time I show up at, Fort Benning, Georgia, I think that was the first time I might even have been out of my state of Pennsylvania. Right. And, now it's, with August 9th, 1984, I show up to Fort Benning, Georgia. I could have been on Mars. I didn't know where I was.
I can relate.
You can relate. Exactly. Right. So I was like, wow, this is humidity. I was fortunate to have good leaders, even from the, my drill instructors. I talk about them. Like, they saw something in me that I obviously didn't see. And then went through that process of infantry school, airborne school, and then to Ranger indoctrination program. And that, was my second initial test of, wow, this is for real, because that was a complete different program. I remember showing up in the senior sergeant, like he stood out on this little balcony. We're all standing in formation, about 150 of us, and he said, I don't care if any of you make it. And I believed him. He was like, I don't care if any of you make it. No. So I was like, great, here we go. And fortunately, I made it through there. And then, showing to the Ranger Regiment, I give a lot of credit to, my first squad leader, Hugh Roberts, who ended up being the Ranger Regimental Sergeant Major. It was funny. He actually shot this picture for the back of my book.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, he's a photographer now in his retirement. He's a photographer, and I had some professional photos done in studio, and then I had these photos done by him, and my editor actually liked those photos better. So
Yeah.
we stuck it on the book and gave him credit. So
he can say he's published now, though.
exactly. So back to your question of, did you think you would make this a career? I didn't think so. I thought I would kind of go in, I would serve, get the college fund, feel all those, positive traits about the military. And then, of course, being in the Ranger Regiment and, in such a great organization, I was promoted quickly. I was with, the best officers, NCOs, and enlisted, in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of forged my foundation. I said, okay, I'm pretty good at this. I enjoy it. And let's see where it goes. But if you would have told me when I, was going in, you were going to spend 26 years, I'd have said, yeah, okay. No,
yeah. I told you that in the middle of RIP, you would have.
No. The first day of RIP, I was at that. But then it also transitioned, from the Ranger Regiment. My first transition out of the Rangers, I became a drill instructor, and only because at that time, the Ranger Regimental Sergeant Major, Hall of Fame legend, Mariano Leon Guerrero, they called him Sergeant Major LG.
Yeah.
He said, hey, why don't you go be a drill instructor? And I was like, why would I do that? And he was like, you already know everything tactically, but you're going to learn some technical and administrative things that are going to make you a better platoon sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, that was a rude awakening too. My first day there, I got to taste the humble pie. You got to remember, I show up, I'm a drill instructor, I go through the drill sergeant program. I finish top of my class. I show up to my unit, I've already been to Panama, combat veteran, mustard stain, the whole thing, CIB. And, I'm 26 years old, staff sergeant, getting ready to make E7 already. And the other drill instructors were so much were older and wiser. And I finally had to say, I need to listen.
Yeah.
And after that initial month, I shut my pie hole and I listened a little bit more. And I got to tell you, I learned so much in those 2 years that when I did go back to the Rangers, I felt I was a better platoon sergeant. Yeah. So because of the experiences. And then, of course, I got to work at West Point and Officer Candidate School. And I was, looking back over my career, I was fortunate to have all those wonderful assignments.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. You mentioned Panama. Was that your first combat tour?
It was my first combat tour. Sure. I was in the Ranger Regiment and it was for real. Somebody asked me the other day, did you guys jump how'd you guys jump 500 feet? I said, no, actually it was 465 feet AGL. So I have to jump
over the treetops as we
Yeah, it was, yeah. I didn't even check my canopy. I got out and I felt the opening shock and then I saw bullets going everywhere. I said, okay, this is for real.
This is for real.
I said, this is a training exercise.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's crazy. I can't really relate that much. I was in combat in Iraq, but we weren't jumping into a hot zone. It was more for us, people just popping shots at us and then they'd run off. It wasn't anything too bad. So
yeah, well, you had a lot of danger there. So, you're not giving yourself full credit. So,
yeah. Well, after spending all this time in the military, did you have a clear vision for what you were going to do when you got out, when you transitioned out of the military, or how did that go?
No, that's fun. I really didn't. And, I was working at West Point about 2005. The New York Rangers came up for their camp, and the hockey coach asked me, Rob Riley at the time, his brother Brian's now the coach at West Point. And he said, hey, the Rangers want to do some type of team building. He said, go see Coach Tom Rennie, who was the New York Rangers coach at the time, and figure out what they want to do. And I went and met him, never knew the guy, met him. We had a great conversation. He said, we want to kind of do this. I said, like squad tactical exercise. He said, yeah. He's like, we want it to be, hooah, but, obviously we don't need to get anybody hurt or anything else. I said, no problem. Yeah. So you could imagine me going back and getting some of the NCOs and cadets. I'm like, we're going to put a hockey team through training. They're like, yeah, it was, and we actually did a exercise at night, 5 or 6 squads, probably 4, 5 hours, middle of the night, dark, in the woods, the whole gamut, battle, march, and shoot, right? It was basically, and it was amazing. And after that, Glenn Sather, the president and general manager of the team, he's a NHL Hall of Famer too. He said, "Hey, you're pretty good at this." He said, "I see how, these men look at you." He's like, your advice on leadership, you should think about doing this. And that's kind of how it spawned. And it spawned from there. And then, of course, professional teams, collegiate teams, businesses, one-on-one life coaching. And so it's, I've turned it into, everybody needs an accountability coach, right? Everybody wants to get to the next level where you're whether you're a C-suite executive or you're a professional coach or whatever else you're doing. You just need somebody that you can lean on. You can call and be like, "Hey, I need a little bit of help. This is what I'm trying to get to. Hold me accountable to it." And that's kind of how it started. So then I educated myself more, and continue to do that. Probably softened my tone a little bit over the years, which is kind of a good thing. This is probably the longest my hair's ever been, but it seems to work. So
you just got to keep it clean on the sides.
Yeah. So I do. I keep it clean. So I made sure I shaved this morning too, because I was looking a little scruffy. I'm like, I better shave. David and Wade are going to make me do push-ups. So that's how it came about. But I want to let people on your podcast know somebody else saw something in me and helped guide me that way. So when I work with a lot of businesses, before this COVID thing, I would give seminars and people were like, "How can I help veterans?" I would say, find a veteran, hire a veteran. Well, I'm in a law firm. Fine. Send him to law school or her to law school, right? There's a lot of smart veterans out there. Find them. And so Glenn Sather saw something in me and said, you can be a success at this. And then even throughout my career, would always call, check in. How are you doing? Do you need any help? Do I need to call somebody for you? Right. So I think that's all part of that, mentorship program and how we can help people throughout our lives. Right. Because we're defined, by what we give, not by what we take. So.
Yeah, that's great. So since you started mentoring, I guess that's what kind of got you into mentoring, was
sure.
him asking you to pull on there. Can you tell me about a really fulfilling experience you've had as a coach or as a leader mentor?
Well, I mean, I feel like I was a small part of the Pittsburgh Penguins winning the 2009 Stanley Cup, and that was being in the locker room after that, and drinking from the Stanley Cup, and just being around the players, and maybe just imparting a little bit of leadership on their captain, Sidney Crosby, and the rest of their team. Those you make lifelong friends there, right? You make lifelong friends, and just giving people avenues to continue to help themselves. So, and I think for teams, what I bring is I'm not their coach. I'm not trying to take their spot. I'm not doing their contracts. I'm not their GM. I want to help them be successful. When I worked for the Florida Panthers, I learned a lot from Dr. Derek Anderson, who's their sports psychologist, and he actually coined a term. I do the macro, he does the micro, and so we were really a great 1-2 punch. And it's just helping people on their development. Right. That's all it is. It's no different than at your office. Like, if somebody's, showing up a little bit late, you're like, "Hey, what's going on with you? Are those the same clothes you wore yesterday? Like what's going on in your life?" And I think sometimes that, we have to be thoughtful leaders in that sense. And sometimes when we say we want to be thoughtful leaders, we're thinking like, oh, we can be wishy-washy or that sort of thing. No, that's not it. I just told a company executive the other day, because he was talking about an issue and they have a standard. And I said, if you lower the standard, then you have no standards, right? So a wavering standard is no standard. So just don't have it then. But if you say this is what's expected, then everybody must meet that. So
yeah. That makes total sense. So I mean, that's what harkens back to the military right there. Anyways, this is the standard that you have to meet this standard to move on or stay in.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. So that's crazy. So let's get into your book now. So
Sure.
last year you published it. You said it was your first book. The title is Warrior Leadership: Steps to Success for Leaders on the Ground. Me and Wade both read it. Fantastic book. I thought you did a really good job of not only like giving, like you gave plenty of information and examples and your own personal stories to let readers use as a guide basically in their own lives, and how to, you weren't even afraid to, you put in some of your mistakes and your failures in there, because that's how you learn the best. So we've got me and Wade and the team came up with a couple of questions we want to ask about your book. I'll start off the first one, then I'll let Wade jump in here. So for our listeners who hadn't served in the military, what aspects of leadership overlap between like the military and public or civilian sectors?
Yeah, wonderful question. And it's funny, I was going through these when you sent them to me yesterday, and like right away my mind's working. And the first thing I put is integrity, right?
Yep.
And the military uses the word integrity.
They beat you with it.
Right, beat you with it. And sometimes we forget that just means being honest, right?
Yep.
Honest in what you say and you do. And I like to use the quote that people may not always want to hear the truth, but they tend to trust those that deal in it.
Yep.
Right? So, when a leader's truthful with you, even if you don't like it, you tend to trust that person, right? And so that's it. And from the military to the civilian life, just be upfront, hold yourself accountable. And when you make a mistake, just admit it. Yep. I screwed up. My bad. You know what? I shouldn't have said that. You know what? I'm sorry. I need to, I'm going to fix myself. I shouldn't have done that, whatever the case may be. Yep. Right. And many times when we make mistakes, there's no malicious intent in it. Yep. Right. I mean, sometimes we just do or say dumb stuff. It happens. Right. Yep. And so admit it, pay the consequences, get over it, learn from it, and move forward. And so that's exactly what you can learn from the military to civilian life. Look, there was a couple times in the military where, I didn't do something completely right. And fortunately, I had an officer at NCO, look out for me. Said, all right, you know what? Let's remediate this.
Yeah.
Because we're all human beings.
Oh, for sure. And I feel like good leaders, I've had some really good squad leaders that I would mess up or do something. And instead of, you're still going to get smoked for it. You're in the military, you mess up, that's what's going to happen.
Right.
But they use it as a teaching moment to understand, okay, this is why we're doing this. You know why you're doing this. Mm-hmm. And make sure that you understand it's not something you're going to turn around in 2 weeks and do again, mm-hmm. that you don't care. Mm-hmm. Good leaders will do that. Mm-hmm. They use that moment to teach. So, Wade, or go ahead.
Yeah. No, yeah. I was just saying when I was a first sergeant at the West Point Prep School, we had three cadets, cadet candidates they're called there, that were, downtown having a few extra beverages, and the Fort Monmouth police brought them by, and they didn't charge them. Boys were just being a little rowdy, and I said, well, you can see the commandant in the morning, in which case you'll be out of the academy, or you can do first sergeant remedial training, which is going to be. And so so of course, I smoked them, and, they dug a couple fighting positions, that sort of thing. But I used it as a teaching tool. So it was raining. And then when they were done, after, 5 hours of, pushing dirt, I said, you're all going to be lieutenants. This is going to come around again. Don't forget this teaching moment.
Yeah.
Don't forget, you're going to one of your men in your platoon or when you're a company commander, this is going to happen. So use this as a teaching moment. And I did for them, and I'm sure they've passed it on to others. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, just chiming in, I was never in the military, but it's funny how I find that military people take ownership of stuff more than non-military, and they'll kind of they'll admit mistakes, and they'll put their. I sometimes wonder if, because like you said, the word integrity, it goes both ways. I think sometimes in the business world, new people don't trust management enough to admit fault because they're worried about the consequences. You ever see that? I mean, you think that's something from the military that you learn that teaches you can kind of trust your superiors more?
Wade, that's a great statement. And I've seen it in business where I've seen it firsthand. Consulting for professional teams and for businesses where a guy's like, I'm not going to admit that mistake because you know what, they'll use it as a reason to fire me or not renew my contract.
Yeah.
Right. So people stay silent. Right.
Yeah.
People don't want to disagree with the boss because they're worried about they're worried about their livelihood.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw it firsthand where, a scout doesn't want to speak up about a certain player. I mean, he believes that, we shouldn't draft this player, but he's not going to go against the general manager, right? He's not going to go against, he's just not going to do it, because he continually has to have a livelihood instead of having an atmosphere where people can speak up and regardless of what decisions are made, but people's voices are heard, right? And that's what I try to tell people. Pick whatever player you want, but let all the voices be heard, right? And then when that's done, everybody's on the same sheet of music about it. But not letting that person's voices heard, and it's the term the go along, get along business, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And if you want to go along, get along, will you ever be great? Now, you might be very good because you have an amazing product, okay? Right? You invented the iPhone, okay? But will you ever be great? You'll never be great unless you allow people to voice opinions, right? And to give ideas. And so I always tell C-suite executives, like, open it up, right? Even if you're the smartest guy in the room or smartest gal in the room, don't act like it. Like, listen, somebody's going to have an idea that might push you to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
I loved in your book, you talked a lot about toughness, which is something I think, I've got 2 kids. I saw you had 3 in your opening. I think that is something we don't teach enough, is just toughness. And I love the way you define it, doing the right things, even when it's not popular or university, something like that. I thought that was really
goes back to integrity. It's doing the right thing when no one's watching.
Yeah. Or when people are watching it and fighting against you over it,
And people have to understand, and you're exactly right, Wade. Toughness has nothing to do with being mean, cold, callous, or insensitive. And a lot of times they'll see that, like David, you saw it in the Army. Wade, you probably saw it growing up. You see somebody and they're like, "Oh, that guy's so tough," and I'm like, "That guy's a prick." Like, excuse my language, but like, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with you can perform at the highest level, despite of what's happening around you, right? And you bring all that together. There's a famous photo, and I use it in my briefings a lot. There's a famous photo of General Eisenhower before the D-Day invasion. You've probably seen it. And he's talking to the 101st Airborne Division. They're all kitted up. They got camouflage on their face. And there he is. And he's got his hands in his pockets, and he's having a conversation. Here's the supreme Allied commander. Dwight D. Eisenhower at that time, history will tell you, probably had more influence than the president, right?
Oh, yeah.
And here he is, likely sending most of these men after their death, right? Because obviously, you know, the D-Day invasion was, you know, one of the most complex military operations of history, still today.
If not the most complex.
I mean, it's still taught at West Point. It's
Yep.
taught at West Point. There's a reason why. And here he was having a conversation, right? That's toughness. That's leadership. That's integrity. And you're exactly right, Wade. Like, I think sometimes we don't, you know, we don't talk about toughness a lot, and we should, when as your children get older, and, you know, my children are now college graduates and, you know, working in life there, you know, they run across a mean boss or something else. Well, you know what? Put yourself together, get back in there, do a good job, right? And keep climbing. And I think that's all a part of it. And so, and the other thing about toughness is, like, you can learn it throughout your life, right? Like, sometimes we're just trying to survive. Like, when I was in RIP, Ranger Indoctrination Program, I was just trying to survive. And then you kind of learn toughness as you go. So.
Yeah. I love that. You actually said that all this stuff can be learned. And I think that's, I love that, and how you want to keep getting better and keep improving. So
I heard you mention once, JB, that, and it's true, that people aren't born leaders. You learn to become a leader. It's not a talent that you might be born with. You learn from experience, from having good leaders. So
I agree with that 100%. And, you know, I often go to the, you know, U.S. Military Academy as an example. And, you know, they start this recruitment process when the young man or woman's a junior, right? And then we bring them to the academy for 4 or sometimes 5 years if we send them to our prep school first.
mm-hmm.
And then after we're done, you know, and all this education and training and learning and developing, you know, we pin lieutenant bars on them when we go, I hope we've done enough. And then every time they get promoted, what do? We send them back to a leadership school, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's a constant developmental process, right? Of course, you know, your primary caregiver, just like toughness, can imprint some of that on you, but it's really on you. It's a learned trait. And when people think, oh, that guy's a born leader or that gal's a born leader, I was like, you know, that leadership's developed. I was just at the dentist yesterday, and my dentist is Dr. Grace Chung. And Dr. Grace Chung is a West Point graduate, and she was also the first captain. So the first captain at West Point is the senior cadet. And so she was the first Asian American woman to be the first captain. And it's so funny because I have not seen her in 20 years. And as soon as I saw her, I was like, first captain, you know, and she was like, oh my God, I haven't heard that forever. But it's so wonderful to see her, like, leadership with her team, and how, you know, everybody at her dental office loves working for her. And it's all that developmental process, right? So it's something like she's taken not just from the military, but now put it into successful, you know, business life. Mm-hmm. And so when I, you know, with especially young leaders, like, you get these young up and coming executives or coaches, and they're like, oh, and I'm like, listen, you'll learn it. Keep after it. Keep studying. Keep preparing. And oh, by the way, do it before you get the position, right?
Yeah.
Do it before you get the position. You know, one of our questions was, what's the hardest leadership trait to learn, and what's the easiest? And, you know, as I was reading your book, I was thinking, for me, toughness and listening are two big focuses in your book. And they almost can be, it seems like some of the people who really have toughness sometimes aren't good listeners. And it's almost like they are inverse of each other at some point.
I've been fortunate enough to be around some leaders that are great listeners, right? Like, don't actually speak a lot, listen, understand. And so, yeah, that's probably one of the toughest things, is learn to be a great listener. And the other thing, I think, in the military, you know, we try to make this like hardcore man, woman, leader, you know, machine gun here, do this here, right? And then we forget the part of empathy, right? we forget that as a leader, you have to have empathy. And so we want to continue to do that as a leader, to say, it's okay to have empathy, right? It's okay to have a human side to you. So the easiest thing for a leader to do is lead by example. Like, if you're not sure, just lead it. Follow me, right? The infantry says, follow me. It's great, right? The Iron Mike statue, follow me. Because if you're not sure, that's what you do.
Yep. That's exactly what I thought about when I was reading parts of your book. Is that's immediately what popped in my head. Just that mentality, the follow me mentality of the infantry, of just being a leader, like lead by example. That's fantastic. You were speaking a second ago, we were talking about how when you get promoted in the military at different levels, there's always a school they send you to. And I personally feel like that's something they could use more of in the civilian world. Not necessarily like a dedicated school, but you get put in a position where you're over some people, you're in a management position, undergo some kind of leadership training or something, even if it's just like a week-long webinar, find some kind of training that for your employees, that when you do try to build them up, if you can't personally sit with them or whatever that you need to do for training, find some kind of thing. What are your thoughts on that?
That wonderful. And that's actually how, I bridged my business from athletics into business, because I had a business executive who owned his own company, who was, promoting people at 20, 21, 22, to be in charge of 4 people. And he realized that this young man or woman, maybe only had a high school diploma and had absolutely no professional leadership training. So I started consulting for them for 10 years, every quarter, and doing professional leadership training for them. And that's exactly it. Like, find a way to get your people leadership training. It's funny because the CFO and I are of this company are good friends, and we talk about this a lot. And one question he said, what if I pay for professional leadership training and my people leave? And I said, well, what if you don't and they stay?
Exactly.
And he's like, here, I'll sign the contract, right? So, and I think sometimes that, like, we just expect that. Okay, you're in charge of 4 people. Good luck.
Yep.
Good luck what? Right?
Yeah, what am I doing?
What am I doing? And so, yes, there are ways of doing that. And you should continue to develop your people. And then all of a sudden they feel inspired. They're like, wow, my company actually cares about me because they're paying for professional leadership training for me. I have a resource I could go to. I still have people that, I'm not on contract with it, still call me and ask me for questions. And I still answer, right? Because you forge a foundation. You want to see them be successful. And you want to see them move to the next level, and you want to see them learn and grow. It's simple things that sometimes in the military we take for granted, right? Because the military does have a wonderful developmental leadership process, mentoring, right? Education, training, and sometimes in the civilian world, we say, we won't spend money on that.
Yeah.
So
the one thing that in your book I found that kind of hit me in the gut was finding a mentor and an accountability partner. And I don't think anybody at our group has done a good job of that. Do you have a suggestion on how to find a mentor? Should it be somebody in your industry, or should it be, just somebody that you kind of respect and know from a looking at things from a different perspective?
Wonderful question, Wade. I try to find it. I think having somebody in your industry is important, but I also think having somebody not associated with your industry is important, because now they are looking at your character and maybe your character improvements needed, and giving you, simple advice. One of my mentors is, Richard Parker. We're not associated. He's a self-made millionaire businessman in Florida. He doesn't do my business. I don't do his business. But every time, I do a podcast or something, I send it to him. And, he calls me and says, okay, this is what I thought was good. This is where I think you can improve. And, and if I have something, I want some feedback on, I can trust him to give me some feedback. So I think that's very, very important that you look for somebody that maybe doesn't tell you the answer you always want to hear. Again, right? You trust those that deal in the truth.
Yeah, good point. So to go about this, would you did you just call him up, and I assume you knew him before, and just say, hey, could we go into some kind of mentorship, and do y'all have scheduled meetings, or is it just kind of random?
Yeah. So with him, it's just a lot of text messaging and then calls and then emails, and it could go quiet for a few weeks and then back on. I know, what I do is I am an accountability life coach for a lot of people, a lot of business executives, and I schedule my calls with them, right? So I do either a weekly or bi-weekly, usually 30 or 45 minutes, a lot of times Zoom, and I go over their plan, what they're working on. I got, I have one after this call. I got another one tomorrow. I had one on Monday. And so what you do is you just, you help people with their goal setting. It's frankly, like with one, I was like, well, you said you would do this 4 weeks ago. You haven't done it. Why haven't you? And then the guy would be like, oh, well, I'm like, okay, so we're making excuses. and it's a little bit funny, but then it's like, he's like, you're right. I'm going to fix it. I'm like, awesome. And so I think that's very, very, very important to do, because, you want to get better. You want to continue to climb. You want to improve your skill set. And a lot of times leaders, we don't like to take feedback, right? Especially if you're in an executive position where, there's a lot of people under you. So you can't take feedback from, somebody else, but you can go to an independent source and get feedback. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Because as an executive, sometimes I get bad feedback from the people because they don't want me to hold them accountable. And, it's like you said, if all the people under you like you, chances are you're not doing everything. You're not holding them accountable all the time. So, you do have to be selective on who you get feedback from.
And I also think it's important as a leader to find help and ask for feedback. I think sometimes when we get up, we get on an island and we're like, okay, well, I'm supposed to know everything. No, you're not. You're not supposed to know everything. Like, the battlefield changes. I mean, look at the environment today, right? The battlefield, everything's different from the time, David, you and I came in the military till now. Like it's completely different. I see that one Army commercial. I love it. It's a drill instructor, and he's asking these recruits, like, what do you want to be? I want to be a warrior. I want to be this. And he asked this one recruit, what do you want to be? I want to be a graphic designer. And he said, you came in the world's greatest military to be a graphic designer. Outstanding, right? Now, when I was a drill instructor at Fort Benning, Georgia in 1991, no one was saying they wanted to be a graphic designer.
No, that conversation would not have gone that way.
Number one, we didn't even know what that was back in 1991, and number two, it would not have gone that way, right? Right. But my point is it's all part of that, and it's all helping leaders with their development because life is changing and people understand. Not too long ago, I told a professional coach, we were talking about a player, and he was like, I need this guy to, play for the logo on the front of the jersey. And I said, Coach, he's not playing for the logo on the front of his jersey. He's playing for his name on the back. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But he needs to take that, he needs to put it in its place. And the coach was like, I didn't really think of it that way. I said, exactly. Mm-hmm. I said, he's talented, he can help you win. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Doesn't mean he doesn't want to be, he's not going to give 100% effort, but everybody does it for different reasons, right? Everybody joins the military for different reasons. Everybody goes into business for different reasons, right? So you have to, as a leader, you have to understand what those concepts are, right? And the last thing I'll end on this is sometimes when you ask leaders for adjustment to open themselves up, they immediately think you want them to lower your standards. And I'm like, no, you don't have to lower your standard. Right? That's the first, but you have to understand that like life is changing. Here's a big one. I'm talking to executives right now, right? Many schools, kids aren't going back to school, right?
Yeah.
So now what? So now you have a parent that's working for you that now also has to help teach their child, right? Mm-hmm. So you better find a way that they can do that, right? You might have to flex their schedule.
Yeah.
Right? That parent might have to come to work for 3 hours, go home and help their child for 3 hours and come back to work, or a day's flex, right? These are all things we have to think about, like, because, or what are you going to do? You're going to lose a good employee. They're going to be all stressed out because their children aren't getting properly educated. So you better find a way through this.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
This is whole new territory we're in.
Whole new territory.
Facing that same problem.
Whole new territory. David, you saw it in Iraq. Like, I was in Afghanistan, you were in Iraq. Like, it changed every single day.
Yep.
Right? Like,
and just as you can just try to adapt as best you can, as fast as you can. That's all you can do. Don't worry about shit that you can't, the things that you can't control.
Right.
Focus on what you can do and what you can control and get it done.
Exactly.
So I know we're running out of time. I want to ask you one more question here. I saw you actually ask this at a conference last year where you're speaking to a group of people, and you asked, when you think of great leaders throughout history, who are 3 people come to mind and why? I wanted to ask and see what your answers would be today.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I always look at, like, I really valued President Ronald Reagan and the things he did as president. And one of the things that he was a very timely person. Like, he did not like meetings to go long. And, so he said, if this meeting's going to take 15 minutes, that's how long it's going to take. You better put everything in it, right? Because he did not like to keep people waiting. And of course, in those type of positions, they don't have 5 minutes in their day. So I liked a lot of his philosophies. Obviously, I talked about Dwight D. Eisenhower. And, you look at Eisenhower, he maybe didn't get all the pomp and circumstance that maybe MacArthur did, right? MacArthur was kind of the big, bold giant, even George Patton. But Eisenhower, found a way. And, he found a way to, have a million men and women under his charge, and find a way to do things strategically. And the last, I will use my mom and dad, and obviously my sisters. They were very, very successful. Mom and dad are passed, but worked hard, and middle-class family to teach us values. And I learned a lot of that. Both my sisters very, very successful. And I look at their ability to have a high IQ and a high EQ. And I think that if you can continue to put that together, educate yourself, then you'll be successful.
That's great. So once you got your copy of your book there, hold it up.
I do.
Tell people where they can find it.
So my book, Warrior Leadership, Steps to Success for Leaders on the Ground. You can go right on my website at JBS. Oh, nice. Good. You could go right on my website at jbsleaders.com and buy it, or on Amazon. And the last thing I'll tell your listeners is, if you want to ask me a question, go right on Instagram at JB Spisso, DM me, ask me a question, I'll answer it. Okay? So I'll get right back to you. I'll try to help you out. And if you need help, I'm here for you.
Thanks, JB. Thank you again for being on the show with us today. I had a great time. Wade, this was we were so excited about this. So.
Yeah, great. It was great meeting you. I'm going to reach out to you. I want to talk about leadership training. So
please do. Well, it was great to have you, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on here. I appreciate all that you do. Let's keep it going. We're moving in the right direction. Last thing I'll tell leaders is take a minute to do some mindfulness every single day, right? That means just take 5 or 10 minutes for yourself, sit over a cup of coffee, whatever you have to do, put some healthy reading or some healthy thoughts into your body. Start your day inspired.
That's awesome.
Great.
Thanks, JB. So
Very welcome.
that's going to wrap up the show for us today, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot us an email at roofconnections@roofconnect.com. We also, just to let you know, we're recording this episode on video, and we will post it to our YouTube channel as well. You just search Roof Connections Podcast. It'll come up, or JB, you can look him up on there. He's all over. You find videos of him speaking at conferences. He's been on a couple episodes of Spittin' Chicklets. I've seen those before with the hockey guys. Those crack me up, by the way.
Yeah, they're great.
So, but thanks for joining us. And we'll see you next time, guys.
Have a wonderful day. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.